Ayanda led them to a hidden shrine deep in the jungle. Inside, ancient murals covered the walls. They told the story of Zuberi's rise to power, but more importantly, they revealed his greatest weakness. The cursed crown, Ayanda said, pointing to a carving of the artifact. It doesn't just grant power, it feeds on its wearer. Jabari's heart pounded. What do you mean? Ayanda's expression darkened. The longer Zuberi wears it, the more it devours his soul. But it also makes him vulnerable. If we can separate him from the crown even for a moment, he will be mortal. Jabari clenched his fists. He finally had a way to kill Zuberi, and he wouldn't waste it. At dawn, the army moved. Jabari, Tao, Ayanda, and the rebels marched toward Nyoka, their weapons gleaming in the rising sun. Dia walked beside Jabari, smirking. Look at you, cub, leading an army. Jabari exhaled. We're not there yet. Dia's smirk faded. We will be soon. And when we are, she glanced at the distant palace, where Zuberi's banners flew. Jabari followed her gaze, his golden eyes burning. When we are, he said, we finish this. As Jabari's army approached Nyoka, Zuberi prepared his own forces. The king stood in his darkened throne room, fingers tapping against the cursed crown. Shadows coiled around him, whispering secrets. A sorcerer knelt before him. My king, the sorcerer asked. Jabari is coming. Zuberi's lips curled into a cruel smile. Let him come. His eyes burned red. The war for Nyoka had begun. The sky was painted in streaks of red and gold as Jabari's army reached the gates of Nyoka. The city loomed before them, its towering walls lined with archers. Fires burned on the battlements, and the air was thick with the scent of war iron, smoke, and blood yet to be spilled. Jabari stood at the front, his golden eyes locked on the palace, the place where Zuberi sat on a stolen throne, the place where it would all end. General Tao raised his hand. The war drums boomed. Doom, doom, doom. From the palace, a single horn sounded. A moment later, the gates of Nyoka opened, and Zuberi's army poured out like a black tide. The battlefield erupted. Jabari and his warriors clashed with Zuberi's soldiers, the sound of metal against metal ringing through the air. Tao led the charge, his axe cleaving through enemy lines. Dia fought with her twin daggers, moving like a phantom through the chaos. Jabari spun his spear, parrying, striking, dodging. He was faster, stronger, his body moving with an unnatural rhythm, the power of Nyoka guiding him. But then, a shadow moved at the edge of the battlefield. Jabari turned just in time to see them. Zuberi's sorcerers. They stood on the palace steps, their hands raised, whispering in a tongue older than time, and the ground split open. Dark figures rose from the cracks, warriors with hollow eyes, bound in chains of smoke and fire. The undead. Zuberi had unleashed his darkest magic. The undead warriors swarmed the battlefield, their soulless eyes glowing like embers. Jabari fought through them, his spear glowing with golden fire. He struck one through the chest, but instead of falling, it melted into smoke and reformed behind him. Ayanda peered at his side, slashing through the wraiths with her curved blades. We can't fight them like this, she shouted. Jabari gritted his teeth. Zuberi's magic was too strong. If they didn't stop the sorcerers, they would all die here. Dia, he called. She appeared beside him, blood staining her face. What's the plan? Jabari's eyes flickered toward the palace. We go for the head, he said, and with that, they charged toward the throne. Jabari, Dia, and Ayanda fought their way up the palace steps. Zuberi's elite guards blocked their path, warriors in black armor, their blades curved like fangs. Jabari's spear flashed, cutting through them like a serpent striking in the dark. Nia's daggers found every weak spot, and Ayanda moved like a shadow, her blades a blur of silver and blood. The palace doors loomed ahead. They burst through. Inside, the throne room was dark and cold, and at the center, sitting atop the cursed throne, was Zuberi. His red eyes glowed, and his laughter filled the air. I was wondering when you'd come, nephew. Jabari lifted his spear. His golden eyes burned. I've come to end this, Zuberi rose, shadows swirling around him. The cursed crown pulsed with power. "Then come, boy," he sneered, "and let me show you what true power is." The throne room shook as Jabari lunged forward, his spear aimed at Zuberi's heart. But his uncle vanished in a swirl of black smoke, reappearing behind him. "Foolish boy," Zuberi sneered. "You fight with the strength of a man. But I am more than that." The shadows around him coiled, shaping into serpentine tendrils that struck like whips. Jabari barely dodged in time. One tendril slammed into the marble floor, shattering. Another coiled around his ankle, yanking him off his feet. He crashed onto the cold stone. Zuberi pounced, his blade flashing down. But Dia intercepted, her daggers clashing against his sword in a burst of sparks. "You talk too much," she growled. Zuberi snarled and sent a wave of dark energy at her. Dia was fast, but not fast enough. Ayanda had to tackle her out of the way. Jabari rolled to his feet, heart pounding. He had to end this before Zuberi's power overwhelmed them all. He gripped his spear tighter and called upon the power of Nyoka. A golden aura flared around Jabari. The air crackled with energy as the spirit of Nyoka awakened within him. For the first time, he truly felt it, the raw ancient power coursing through his veins. Zuberi hesitated, and in that moment, Jabari attacked. His spear struck with lightning speed, forcing Zuberi on the defensive. Each blow sent shockwaves hurtling through the chamber. But the cursed crown pulsed, and Zuberi roared. His dark magic exploded outward, hurling Jabari across the throne room. Jabari landed hard, gasping for breath. His vision blurred as Zuberi stalked forward, his sword raised for the killing blow. But then, the crown flickered. Zuberi stumbled, clutching his head. His body convulsed, and in his eyes, for the first time, fear. Ayanda's voice rang out. "It's feeding on you, Zuberi. The crown doesn't make you powerful, it's devouring you." Zuberi froze, his breath came in ragged gasps. Jabari saw it, the way the shadows clung to him like leeches, the way his skin looked pale, almost sickly. The crown had never been a gift, it was a curse, and it was slowly consuming him. Jabari pushed himself up, blood dripping from his lip. "Take it off," he said, "before it's too late." For a moment, something flickered in Zuberi's eyes out, but then his face twisted with rage. "No," he snarled, "this power is mine." With a roar, he summoned all his magic. The room darkened, the walls trembling. If Jabari didn't stop him now, there would be nothing left of his uncle, or Nyoka. Jabari made his decision. He didn't have to kill Zuberi. He had to separate him from the crown. Summoning every ounce of his strength, he lunged not for Zuberi, but for the crown itself. Zuberi's eyes widened in realization. Shouted, "No, don't." Jabari's hand touched the crown. The world exploded. A wave of pure energy burst upward, hurling them both apart. The walls cracked. The ceiling began to collapse. Jabari hit the ground, pain ripping through his body. And Zuberi screamed. The crown melted off his head, its dark energy escaping in a burst of black smoke. His body convulsed, and for a split second, he was just a man again. A man who had lost everything. And then, the shadows dragged him into the abyss. Silence fell. The battle was over. Jabari lay on the ground, barely conscious. The palace was in ruins, the throne shattered. Footsteps approached. Dia knelt beside him, her voice uncharacteristically soft. "You did it, cub." Jabari blinked up at her. "Where is Zuberi?" Ayanda answered. "Gone." The crown was destroyed. Its curse had ended, and Nyoka was free. Jabari struggled to sit up. His body ached, but his spirit felt lighter. For the first time in his life, he was no longer running. He was home. Days later, the people of Nyoka gathered in the city square. Jabari stood before them, dressed in the royal garb of his ancestors. Tao, Ayanda, and Dia stood at his side. The rebels had become protectors. The people had become warriors. Nyoka would never be ruled by fear again. A village elder stepped forward, holding a new golden crown, one forged from light, not darkness. As he placed it on Jabari's head, the people roared his name, and so the lost heir of Nyoka became the Serpent King. But this was only the beginning. A new legend had been born, a new era had begun, and the world would remember the name King Jabari of Nyoka.